Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Florka. I'm your Baked in Science podcast host for Bakerpedia, and welcome to your Thought Leadership Thursday. Today, we have our great sponsors from Lesaffre with us. We're going to talk about all kinds of benefits to improving cost efficiencies in many different ways. And I have E.B. Russell, and we have Jim Gluhusky. And so, welcome to Thought Leadership Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. And so, Jim, can you lead us in and maybe tell us a little bit? Well, actually, I'll do this. I'll start with EB. You lead us in and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll go to Jim and some of the history as well.
Perfect. My name is E.B. Russell. I am the Business Development Manager for the Lesaffre, focusing on bakery ingredients. I have a degree from Kansas State University, and I went to AIB's technical 16-week course, and I've been in the baking industry for a while.
Excellent.
Hi, and I'm Jim Gluhusky. My title is Senior Technical Services Manager. I've been with Lesaffre primarily on the technical side for over 26 years. And prior to that, managed a lot of large industrial bakeries. It's been a really good experience to be able to meet a lot of different people from a lot of different places and see all their different processes and the beautiful products that they make. And as a technician, being able to visit a lot of these bakeries, it's just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, that's that. I remember my days doing tech service for ADM Milling in Canada. That was what I enjoy too. Is all the variety of things that you get to see, and all the the amazing personalities that we have in the baking industry and stuff as well. And so, Jim, so you're part of the furniture at Lesaffre. So did the history begin before you, or?
Yes, Mark, it happened a long time before me. But before I talk a little bit about the history, I'd like to make a little plug here for something that's really dear to Lesaffre, and that's safety.
Excellent. Yeah.
All of us at Lesaffre believe that every accident is preventable, and everybody is a leader in our company when it comes to safety. We all take it very seriously, and even when we're visiting plants, we like to portray that to all of our clients, all of our friends, our family, and it's something that we hold very dear. And not only are we concerned about safety of ourselves, we're concerned about the safety of the products that are being made. And as a baking industry, it's up to us to be, again, the leaders in the industry to assure that the supply of, whether we're selling ingredients or wholesome products, that they're safe, that they're predictable and wholesome.
Absolutely, yeah. Everything should be sound and safe, and not just enjoyable, but also safe to consume at all times. Right? That's excellent. It's fantastic. I've spent my 25 years with ADM, and probably it was probably about, I'm trying to remember, maybe 15 or 16 years ago when they adopted the safety culture very heavily as well, and it's been huge, and it's been beneficial in so many different ways, right? I mean, being a manufacturer like Lesaffre is in that way too. That at the plant level, there's a lot of accidents that happen otherwise because of carelessness or the wrong kind of priorities. And so that is really great to hear. That is super. But besides the safety culture, Lesaffre does have a very interesting history, and perhaps you could share some of that with us.
Yes, they do. Actually, the person who developed fermentation was Louis Pasteur back in the 1800s. And just soon after he noticed about fermentation, Lesaffre was born. 1853 is when Lesaffre actually started. It was, obviously it's been several years in the making, and it's been pretty much family owned and privately held throughout. When I first started, I think it was on the 7th generation of Lesaffre people. So it's probably, for sure the 8th or 9th generation now.
That's fantastic.
what's kind of interesting is the headquarters are located in the northern part of France, close to Lille, in a town called Marc and Brule. Excuse my French, I probably pronounced that wrong. But what's kind of interesting is it was the path of the two world wars that were over in Europe, where a lot of the unfortunate fighting took place. So during both of those world wars, the yeast plant had to be abandoned, and a lot of it was actually destroyed. But for years, the Lesaffre family always persevered, and that's part of what their culture is, and part of what the symbol of the swallow actually means, that you see on almost every package of yeast. Recently, the last 30 years, Lesaffre has really diversified, and we're more than just yeast now. We're more than fermentation, but a lot of what we do is both yeast and fermentation. We provide yeast and fermented products to the animal industry. We also provide it to plants now, where we're actually looking, as opposed to having fertilizers, to have different forms of bacteria, prevent some of the pests from growing. So there's a lot of things. Is our mission and our statement, our commitment to everybody for Lesaffre is to better nourish and protect the planet. And, that's what we do. One of the things that we have to do to nourish and protect the planet, why it's so important to us, is that every day about 1 billion different people in the world consume a product that's made by Lesaffre. Over 1 billion people every day.
Wow, that's incredible.
A commitment that we have to really watch out for.
That's incredible. And some of the things that we're here to talk about today, in terms of, while we're feeding those billion people, is we got to do that so that as bakers, we're doing it also economically and profitable at the same time too, while keeping it all safe, of course, right? And some of the interesting things that you have, EB, is you have a product that is called Lesaffre Pro Relax that you're talking about later. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then maybe Jim can fill us in on the technical side of it.
Sure. We have a product called Lesaffre Pro Relax. It's a deactivated yeast. And what it does is it basically helps you reduce your mixing times, and it can also help you with the temperatures of your dough. So you don't have to use ice in the summer. And if you're using it for a frozen product, you don't have to worry about the temperatures getting too warm until you stick it in the freezer. And I'll let Jim kind of expand on all of that, since he's experienced it in the bakery as well.
Oh, thanks, EB. For all the people that are kind of scientifically orientated, Relax Pro inactive yeast, basically that's what it is. It's inactive yeast. What we do is we take a live baker strain of yeast, and then we heat it up to the point where the yeast actually dies off. From there, we then grind it into a powder. Yeast is kind of an interesting organism because it's primarily protein. And if you remember back to some of your science days, all of protein is basically amino acids. Yeast has an amino acid that's actually a bunch of them that are very unique, in that it does allow you to reduce the mix time of doughs. What I'm referring to mostly is yeast is rich in a thing called glutathione, which is actually a tripeptide of 3 amino acids. One of those is called cysteine, which, as you know, L-cysteine is commonly used as a mix reducing agent.
Yep.
Interesting enough, another part of the glutathione is that amino acid called glutamate. And
perfect. Yeah.
And if everybody kind of knows a little bit about our yeast extract division, that mimics an umami flavor. So you almost get a little added benefit sometimes when you're using the Relax, as it can enhance some of the flavor of your products. But really the main use of it, as EB said, was you put just a very small amount into the mixer, and it allows you to reduce the mix time up to 25 to 30%. Scientifically, again, as doughs are mixing, the protein that's in the doughs, the disulfide bonds will start to attach itself during mixing and adding water, and it makes it really tough to then mix that dough out to get it to stretch.
Mhm.
So what happens with these amino acids, we refer it to as GSH. Some of those actually attach to the sulfide bonds, and it allows that to slide past each other instead of attaching to each other while it's mixing. And that's kind of how you're able to see that reduce mix time. The good
Yeah.
thing is, again, it's natural. You just have to
Yeah.
call it yeast. And
Yeah.
EB, I suppose you can probably go over, some of the other benefits that you can get besides mix time reduction.
Well, yeah, I mean that the mix time is going to. The first thing I see in terms of economy of things, economically, is that one, you're mixing less, so you're using less electricity. It's also less wear and tear on the equipment. And Eva, you mentioned, cooler doughs because you have less friction, so you're not heating it up as much, and so that way you wouldn't have to need, to use ice and things like this, right? That's really awesome, right? Is there anything else that we haven't covered in that? I mean,
You can look at your production efficiencies,
oh
and
yeah,
if your
yep,
doughs are coming out faster,
yep,
you can speed
mhm,
up your lines a little bit
yep,
more. So you've got that
or
efficiency.
squeeze another batch in, right?
Or squeeze another batch in. Yep, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. That is really cool.
another thing too, Mark, is a lot of times, especially in larger bakeries, even in smaller ones, especially in the summertime when it's really hot. Um,
Hmm.
uh, a lot of bakeries, they don't have the adequate refrigeration in order to keep the doughs at a decent temperature. And
Hmm.
the only way for them to keep doughs cold is to use ice.
Yep.
Ice is a cumbersome ingredient. Everybody thinks it's a free thing, but it's really not. And it could be a very big expense. Not only that, it could present a lot of safety hazards, as we talked about earlier,
Yep.
because it's melting and provides trip hazards.
Hmm.
There's a lot of not so good things associated with ice, and that's one thing that you can eliminate. There was actually a large industrial bakery that saved several $100,000 a
Yeah.
year
Oh, I can
by
imagine that. Yeah. I mean, yeah,
eliminating ice and
ice invites so many problems. I mean, if you, like you said, I mean, on the initially begin with just getting it to the bowl. I mean, there's always that risk of creating slip hazards and that sort of thing. Ice is expensive to produce because it costs a lot of energy, and the thing is that the ice cannot be absorbed into the gluten while it's
right,
frozen. So
correct.
it's going to affect dough development and the consistency of your doughs and that as well. There's sometimes there's some ways to in special situations that will work around it. I worked on a project once where we utilized the ice actually to help recrystallize the fat in the system because what they were mixing in was an ABM mixer, which is like these looks almost like a robo coupe with two giant blades in the bottom or a food processor, and so they spin at very high speed, and that causes, of course, an enormous amount of friction in trying to build up a dough. So we had to reverse the order of the ingredients at the bakery so that the melted fat could go in with the ice first to crystallize that, and then add in the flour and the other ingredients, um, so that we would form a dough because it only had a total. I think it was either 25 or 30-second mix time. Right, it was very very
Very
short.
fast, yeah.
So it was a very interesting challenge, right? But in that situation, we did also save the customer a huge amount of money over time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For different reasons, but I won't get into that here.
Yeah, there's so many benefits with this.
Yep.
It's almost a magic product.
Yep.
EB can attest to it also. Uh, the doughs, they're so much more relaxed. They're easier to scale, so you have much more accurate scaling. We even had a really high speed bun manufacturer that was able to pretty much hardly sheet out the dough pieces at all because they would just naturally flow into the shape of the cup.
And
Anytime you have the long dough pieces, whether it's a baguette or even trying to press out a pizza or tortilla, any type of flatbread, that you're always concerned about stretching back or stretching it far out. You're worried about tearing the dough. You don't get much of that at all when you use the right amount of inactive yeast. So there's a lot of cripples that you're saving. There's a lot of throwback dough that you're saving. And the other thing too is a lot of times it takes a while to process these doughs from the beginning to the end. And we found that with the use of the inactive yeast, again, because the dough is so relaxed and has that characteristics, that it's not that hard to process towards the end of the dough either.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really good. And EB, this also, what I was thinking is that the ingredient listing is it just inactive yeast or deactivated yeast?
Just yeast.
Just yeast.
Label it just as yeast. Yep.
Just as yeast. That's excellent, because as Jim, as you mentioned, L-cysteine is one of the amino acids in there that has that reducing value, or helping with the dough. And where some people with clean label ideas and stuff, although L-cysteine today is synthesized primarily, but originally the source of L-cysteine was boar hairs, was the hair off of pigs, because L-cysteine is an amino acid that is in hair, right? And that's what keeps our hair nice and soft and supple, right?
Always good. Always good.
So, so people are going to choose a white bread that just says yeast rather than something that says L-cysteine on it, right? Because people don't have any idea. The consumer doesn't know what that is. And that's why this clean label movement has been born so much. And speaking of which, popular ingredient that is used a lot, or has been used a lot over the years still, is distilled mono and diglycerides, mostly in a distilled form. And you have a replacer for that as well that fits with clean label. Is that correct, EB?
Yes, we do. We have a product called MDG Replacer. The MDG, I know it's like,
what a marketing clue.
We have a great marketing team, but it's there to replace the mono and diglycerides in your system. And as we know, mono and dice have been hard to find the last couple of years. It seems to be that there's been a shortage of this product. It's also a little bit more challenging to have on your label. So it helps allow you to clean up your label and put enzymes as the replacement product. And it also kind of helps you clean up your SKUs for products that you're purchasing. So you can bring this product in and have it available to put in to your breads and help keep them soft and utilized throughout your shelf life system as well. And Jim, I know you have some more to add to that, so why don't you go ahead?
Well, I'd like to at least go back several years back when I was actually managing bakeries. We carried a lot of the same products that bakers use today, for the initial 1 to 3, 4 days of softness of your crumb. And these things were pastes. They're so difficult to handle, to scale. I think the number one complaint that I would always have from the employees that I worked with was, don't you have something else we can use besides this paste? Because it was so cumbersome, so hard. And then you had to discard it with the plastic and the plastic wrapper, the blue, and it was not easy to do. That all goes away with an MDG replacer. Basically, all it is a combination of enzymes, and they're actually just blended with flour, and very concentrated. You normally have to use 3 to 6 times less amount, depending on which of the forms of MDG that you are using.
That's excellent.
Enzymes, of course, technically, that's a whole course in itself. But in essence, enzymes are basically, they work on only specific parts of the flour, which are either the starches, the proteins, the pentosenases, the lipases, things like that. They really rely a lot on temperature and pH, or the acidity level. That's
Mm-hmm.
how effective and how efficient enzymes are going to be. So if you're just going to take out one product that you've used for 50 years or whatever and replace it with an enzyme, it's kind of important still that you kind of ask and understand a little bit about, your products and what type of flour you're using, and important things like temperature and the acidity level of dough to get these efficient reactions in order for things to work.
Yes, because
And
now
when you do, it makes a huge difference.
you have
And
different things influencing and affecting the process and stuff, and um, depending on your flour spec, that alone can change, and that you need to adjust your enzymes and stuff as well, right? And it makes me think of too when you talked about the paste in the box with the blue plastic liner. um, it's again, that goes back to safety again too, and indirectly in that way sense too, because I can't tell you how many times I got called out to a bakery, and now the main thing we were selling was flour. So but this is the baker's mentality, right? The biggest ingredient is always at fault, right? So, and I get called out to a bakery because they were finding blue plastic in the dough. um, and they didn't want the blue plastic, of course, to make it into the bread that the customer chokes on it or things like that. And this is most of the time was what was happening was they were putting the last bit of the monodiglyceride into the dough, and the bag got caught in the mixer in the hook while it was running, and then they yanked it out and didn't realize they didn't get it all right. And so
I'm smiling because everything you're saying, I think everybody's experienced the
yeah.
same thing. Am I right, EB?
Yep. That's, you leave it in there just to hope you get all of the last little bit out, and then.
Yeah. And
Yep.
we'd go through the steps of the investigation, and would come back from our quality assurance director, not my plastic.
Yeah, I'd like to just add one other thing too. I think it's kind of important. Um, One of the things that we didn't realize when we started researching, how can we remove MDGs from the label, is the effect that it would have on the taste of the product.
Uh-huh.
I think our palates, a lot of them had been ingrained to that's part of the taste of bread,
Mm-hmm.
and even the aroma also.
Yep.
And when we removed those and started replacing it with enzymes, boy, what a difference!
Mm-hmm.
I mean, EB, I know she can attest to that too. And when you first started comparing the taste, it's like, wow, I never realized this is so much better. And so there is a lot of extra added benefits that you get.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because MDGs are derived from fats. And so they will carry sometimes the flavor notes from those fat sources. And because they are originally what was a triglyceride is now cleaved off into a separate mono and a diglyceride, you have those flavor effects as well, which are somewhat similar to rancidity. And in terms of the acidic notes and things like that. Yes, and I agree 100%. Right? And and the advantage also there again in cost savings, if you're not using MDG and you look at this opportunity for the MDG replacer as adding an enzyme, is again there's still also the cost benefit of extending the shelf life of your product with a natural ingredient.
Correct.
Yep.
That's
yeah,
excellent.
and because they're using so much less amount, there is some cost savings there also, right? Right up front.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not to mention all
If you have less returns, like if you're working with a store that is going to start returning it, if it doesn't pass a certain Charmin test or something, right? Then you don't have all those returns to deal with because your bread stays nice and soft an extra few days. Right?
Yeah.
And so we have one more one that's really interesting. That is this is probably one of those marketing names that is not as obvious. It's like I remember back to like the MDG replacer is perfect, right? And
Yes.
SAF Pro Relax, that's great too, right? And I remember from my protein days with ADM, Profram 971. And I still don't remember what it is. But you have a SAF Pro STR 701. Now that's not a train, a plane, or a flight number. Or
It's not an automobile, no, but it will get you where you want with your product. So you can
tell
take
us
that
about
to the
that.
bank. Well, SDR 701 it's a great product that is clean label,
Mm-hmm.
and it will help you remove quite a few of the more challenging ingredients that have been difficult to find the last couple of years. And again, it goes back to cleaning up your label. So
Yeah.
we're using it to help with reduction of vital wheat gluten, looking at taking out your monos and dyes,
Mm-hmm.
helping to reduce your SSL, and then also giving you some anti-staling effects. So helping you with that softness and that longer shelf life. Again, it goes back to cleaning up your label, kind of helping with that supply chain issue of maybe finding hard to find ingredients, also reducing your SKUs, and allowing you to just have one product that you can use at a smaller rate
Mm-hmm.
into your product line, and keeping you safer by just having a 50-pound bag as opposed to 7 or 8 50-pound bags.
That's excellent. Yeah. Oh, anything to reduce that vital wheat gluten is always helpful to the bottom line. It's because I mean that goes so up and down in price so much. I mean, I can remember there was years ago there was a shortage of vital wheat gluten here in North America because the especially the U.S. crop was just so weak and low in protein at the time, and it got to the point where they were importing gluten from Europe, and it was like 3 times the normal cost of what they were paying, and it was just crazy, right? And of it, and bread didn't go up that much in price, fortunately for the consumer, but it was really hurting the bakers, right? And so, Jim, the SDR 701, that isn't like WD-40, which is water disbursement formula number 40.
Well, actually, I believe the STR stands for strength, and the other numbers sort of kind of evolved. It's a kind of a long story, but really, the STR 701 was pretty much EB's brainchild,
Mm-hmm.
brainstorming, and a lot of it happened during the vital wheat gluten shortage,
Mm-hmm.
and, which coincided with the issues of the pandemic. And EB had mentioned earlier, a lot of these ingredients that not only do we discuss about the price fluctuating, you can't even get them, not to
Mm-hmm.
mention the price. And, I spent a lot of time during the pandemic working in bakeries or visiting customers. And not only did they have labor shortages, they were running their schedule based off of what ingredients that they had in stock.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So EB, came up with an idea. Maybe we can come up with some type of ingredient, that's clean label, that's enzyme based, enzymes easy to get a hold of, that can perform all the functions in one. And so it performs the strength, as she said, it performs the short term and a little long term shelf life softness. And we also have the version where we put an active yeast in there. So
Mm-hmm.
you get all the benefits of what we discussed earlier. Um, I can tell you there's a customer that we had. He was an owner of a bagel shop, a very large bagel bakery, and he was producing bagels for almost 25 years. And EB visited this person, and he tried it, and he actually called me up and put me on the speaker, the iPhone, and
Mm-hmm.
showed me a picture of his product. And he says, I have never seen in 25 years any product perform like this. I'm so impressed. And
Excellent.
he's one who had to order a lot of gluten. He's the one who's ordering the MVG, and
Mm-hmm.
struggling to get these things. And again, this is more of a EB's thing than anybody. So I could turn you over to her and let her know what her thought process was.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So tell
Well,
us.
I think Dr. Cropper also has a lot of Dr. Cropper was the one who really put it all together and did all the hard work. So I have to give credit where credit is due. She's our innovation expert. She did a fantastic job developing
Oh,
it.
fantastic! No, that's great to hear. I mean, but obviously, there's a great, but also is revealing here is that there's a great team spirit at Lesaffre, that you all feel that you can bring ideas to each other to help create new opportunities for bakers and for your company, and that's fantastic to hear as well, right? I mean, not every company always enjoys that, right? I mean, some have a very top down type of attitude where nobody else can tell us what to do, only the people at the top, right? But that's not always as very productive, right? This has been very educational and very informative. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to share and tell us about with relative to Lesaffre or your cost savings products and things?
Well, I do want to point out just a few things again about Lesaffre, and Mark, really appreciate you saying how our team spirit and culture is, because that is true. And I've been here with Lesaffre, like I mentioned earlier, for 26 plus years, and it's always been that way.
Mm-hmm.
We're a team, but more so because we're so globally entrenched, and we have so many plants. There's very nary product or a process that we're not familiar with. All of us come with all different types of skills and expertise within Lesaffre. None of us know everything, but
Mm-hmm.
we all have a lifeline or some type of connection to somebody where we can find out an answer for you. And we'll go back to our beliefs about nourishing and protecting the planet and safety and all this. That all comes around one thing. It comes around that we as a baking industry, we're professionals and we love the industry, and we want to we're bakers first more than we are anything else. And we want to help people. We're always available. And these are just three products that we decided to highlight today, but Lesaffre has many others.
Oh
And,
yes, you have a
we have
huge
many
range of
solutions that
projects.
we can do in addition to this. And, if you're interested, I encourage you to reach out to EB or myself at any time.
Excellent. And the website for those interested here in the U.S. and North America is just www.lesaffre.com.
You can go on to lesaffrebaking.com also.
Lesaffrebaking.com.
Yes.
And
And
Lesaffre is spelled Lesaffre, and then baking.com.
Yep.
Excellent. Super.
and feel free to reach out to EB or myself. But if anybody has any other questions or comments,
I'm sure when this gets archived, I'm sure the email addresses will be posted in the notes and stuff like that, so that people can always find that link as well. Otherwise, do you want to give us your email address, EB, for those that are watching right now?
Sure. It's e.russell, Russell, at lesaffre.com, Lesaffre.
Excellent. Well, this has been an excellent Thought Leadership Thursday. And thank you once again, Jim Gluhusky and E.B. Russell of Lesaffre. And we'll see you all in the next Thought Leadership Thursday. Take care now.
Thank you.
bye.
Thanks, Mark.